Right, so far we've been using get mostly and not so much of a post. We are not posting data. So this is going to be pretty straightforward. Let's say that you have a form and this form adds a user to a database or whatever. So we're going to pretend that. So whenever you send a post via HTTP request, the data it's on the body of the request. And we cannot get that just right out of the box with Express or Node. We need something else. And how do you think we're going to get that data? Using middleware. Yeah, middleware, it's really important for us. So we're going to do that. First, we need to install something that's going to be called Body Parser. And that middleware is going to help us get the data we need from a post request. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to kill Node server. I'm going to do the Node one. I'm going to do clear. And then I'm going to do, let me make this bigger. I'm going to do npm install. And then it's going to be body, just like that, dash, and then parser. And of course, minus save. It's really small, so it's going to take just a second. That's done. And then I'm going to start nodemon again, nodeboard and server.express. Good. It's going to start the server. And if I reload the page, it's still working. That's good. So first we need to require it. So I'm going to go right here at the top. I'm going to say const. And I'm going to require body parser. I'm going to call it body and then parser. It's going to be equal to require open and close body parser. Body and then parser. There we go. Okay, so now we can post data and get the information. Now I'm going to show you two different ways. First, it's going to be using query string. The method we discussed previously, with the query string with the question mark, the name equal to something, whatever, and then with the ampersand and something else. First, we're going to be doing that, and then we're going to do just an AJAX request. We are not going to use React for now. We're going to be using it and connecting to this server in a couple minutes. So first, we're going to need a form because we don't have a place where we can submit a post request. So I'm going to go right here to the root directory and I'm going to say query and then string, just like that. And then HTML. So this one is going to host the actual, the form. I'm going to copy this and paste it down here and delete this right here. So now we need to create a form. So first I'm going to add just a headline, enter new user. Makes sense. Then inside of a form, and we're going to use the old-fashioned way. Inside of a form, we're going to pass the method. Whenever you create a form, you need to pass the method. In this case, it's going to be post. So I'm going to say post. And then we need to select the action. We need to pass the action. This is going to be where we're going to be sending this post request. So I'm going to call it enter user, whatever. Now we're going to need to add the input. So it's going to be div. I'm going to add a title for this. Enter first name, just like that. And this one, of course, is going to have an input, which is going to be of type and then text, just something simple. Then name, we're going to add a name. It is going to be first name, and then an ID with the same thing, with the first name. Right, first name, and then we close it. Good. Now we're going to add a different thing. We can add a last name. I'm going to say div, and then enter last name, whatever. Good. Then we're going to add an input as well, and it's going to be a type of text, and I'm going to copy all of this because I'm lazy. I don't like to type it. So name is going to be a last name, and the ID is going to be last name. The last thing we're going to need is going to be a button so we can submit the form. So we're going to say input, just like this, input, and it's going to be type of submit. We're going to be adding a text. Value is going to be of submit. Real simple. So now this route, this query string, it's right here on this HTML, but inside Server Express, whenever we get a request for this, we are not really showing it. So we kind of need to create a route for this. Now there are many ways to create routes to show the files. We're going to be using React. So I'm not going to show you a different way to show this HTML, because we will need to use a template engine, just like Handlebars or EJS or something like that. I'm not going to show you because it's going to take a lot of our time. So we're going to create a route and include that as a regular HTML. So first we need to require the FS module. So we can grab that file. So it's going to be require and then FS. Good. So now I'm going to create a route that is going to be, I'm going to put it after home because it kind of makes sense. And I'm going to say app.get open and close. And now we're going to be enter user. We're going to be listening for that, for user. Let's say user. Good. So now whenever we get a request for this, we want to catch that request and that response. And then, of course, we're going to do something. Now, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be grabbing the HTML that we have on file. So we're going to do fs dot and then read file sync, just like we did before. And we're going to pass the template string, just like here. It's the same idea we did before. We're going to do underscore, underscore, and then their name. And then / and I believe it was called query string.html. Yeah, it was query string. Okay, so we have the file. Whenever we get a request for this, we're going to catch this with read file sync, and then we're going to send it. So again, with this, we're going to do response send open and close, and we're going to pass as a string the actual HTML. So we're going to say HTML. Okay, so I'm going to save it, and in theory, if I go to / and then user, we should be getting the form. Oh, user. Their name, I made a mistake, it's their name. There we go. It's a reload, and we get the form. That's good. So now whenever we type something inside and we submit, we need a way to catch the form. Right here inside the form, we are making a post request to enter user. So if I click submit, of course, nothing is going to happen because we don't have this post. So, okay, I'm going to go back to server to server. I'm going to go right here at the bottom, and we're going to create that listener. So we're going to say app dot, and to get posts request, we need to use post, just like that. And we're going to be listening for / and then whatever we passed inside the action, which is enter user in this case. So I'm going to say enter user. And then, of course, request and response. So we say request and response. Now, the problem is that whenever we pass the information as a post to this location, inside the request, we don't really have the information about the post. We don't have the first name and we don't have the last name. In order to get this, we need to use body parser. Now first, just like a middleware, we need to create a variable that is going to be using this. And then we're going to do it in a different way. We're not going to do it like this. So what we can do, we can create a middleware that is going to be inside of a variable. And then that variable, we can use it inside here. Let me just show you. I'm going to create a variable. It's going to be URL encode, just like that, URL encode, and then parser. It could be whatever name you want. Then we're going to be using that body parser. We're going to do dot, and now we're going to be passing the data as a query string. Now that's not as JSON. So to get query strings, you need to use URL encoded. And inside, we're going to be passing, an object with some properties. It's going to be extended and then false, just like this. I'm going to save it, and now we have our middleware. Everything, it's right here. Now, how can we make use of this middleware? Now, what we can do, we can copy the name of this variable and go to the actual route. So we can pass a second argument to this post listener that is going to be this body parser. So now whenever we get a request for enter user, it's going to enter this state. Then it's going to be listening this, and then it's going to go to the next phase, which is going to be the parser. This one is going to parse the information on the body, and it's going to be passing the request data, the data we need, to the next line of code, which is the actual function, the callback. And everything is going to be inside the request, right? Okay. So now in theory, if we try to catch the information, I'm going to say const, and then first name. It's going to be equal to request.body. Remember that we have an inside body, so make request. We access this request. Then we call the body, and then the name of whatever we want to get. In this case, the first name, it's just first name. So I'm going to say dot first name. Good. Then I'm going to be catching the last name. So I'm going to say last name equal to request.body dot and then last name. All right. Let's do a console log. Console.log, open and close, and then first name, and then, same thing for last name. Right. So now whenever we click submit, it's going to pass the information as a query string inside here. It's going to enter to this. It's going to decode the information we have on the query string, and then it's going to be available inside the request of the callback. That's the idea. So I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go back to the user route. I'm going to reload it. I'm going to say Francis and then Jones. And I'm going to do submit. The application is going to fail because we are not sending any response. So I'm going to submit. It's going to hang there. But if we go to the terminal, we see Francis and we see Jones. At the end, of course, you're going to grab this information, store it into a database, for example, and then, of course, you're going to send a response. For example, send, something like that, and, whatever. It doesn't matter. So let's go back. I'm going to reload the application. I'm going to say Francis, then Jones, and then submit, and we get the 200 for OK. And then, of course, we get the information right here, Francis and Jones. So, that is working. But right now, we are just using a query string. How can we get JSON data? With React, we pretty much use JSON. So let's see how to get JSON data from the body. Right, so since we are going to be using React, we are not going to use query strings with React. We work with JSON data. So how can we make a post request with some JSON data? Okay, so first we kind of need a route to send some JSON. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to create a new file that is going to be called JSON post. Make sense? JSON post, HTML. So to make an AJAX request, we need jQuery. So I'm going to go right here and say cdn.js and then jQuery, open and close. Good. So right here we're going to have the listing for the jQuery. So I'm going to copy jQuery and then of course include it as a script. Then source, and we pass the location. Real simple. I'm going to close it. We are not going to need it. So now whenever we make a request whenever we render this HTML, it's going to load jQuery. Now what we need to do, we need to send some AJAX data. We need to make a post request with AJAX. So first we're going to create the script tag, right? Open and close. And we're going to do an AJAX request. So it's going to be AJAX open and close. And if you remember, with AJAX, we pass an object. First, we need to specify the type, which is going to be post. Then we're going to be passing a URL, which is going to be where we're going to be making this post request. And I'm going to call enter user underscore post. Then we need to pass the actual data. So I'm going to say data, and I'm going to add the JSON information right here. So we're going to say JSON dot, and we're going to use a stringify, and then we pass the actual object. So it's going to be first name, open and close, then Francis, and then last name, and it's going to be Jones. This is standard jQuery, really easy for us at this stage. So I'm going to do comma and do content type. Of course, we need to specify the content type. In this case, since we are sending JSON, it's going to be application/JSON. So whenever the application loads this screen, we're going to load jQuery and we're going to do this AJAX request. Now we don't have something that is going to be rendering this route, just like the other one. So let's create this one. I'm going to copy the user one because it's going to be pretty much the same. And I'm going to say it's going to be user and post this time. And instead of query string, we're going to use JSON and then post HTML. Okay, so I'm going to save it and I'm going to go to user underscore and post. Of course, nothing is going to get rendered, but if I go to the inspect, I'm going to get a 404. Now it's trying to make a request, a post request to enter user underscore post. But inside our server, we don't have that. We are not expecting for any post data from this. So let's create the route for this. So I'm going to say, of course, app post, just like we did before. And this one is going to be listening for whatever we are passing right here. So it's going to be enter user underscore post. So we're going to be listening for that. Of course, we need to run a callback with a request and a response. Now, we need a way to graph the JSON data from body. We cannot use this one because this one is expecting some query strings. It's expecting query strings. So this one, it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to register a new middleware that is going to be expecting some JSON data. So I'm going to call it JSON and then parser. We need to parse the JSON, parse the body for JSON. So we're going to use body parser and then JSON. That's it. Real simple. It's the only thing we need to do. So now we're going to copy this middleware and we're going to use it just like we did with the other one. We're going to pass it as a second argument. And now whenever we make a request, JSON parser is going to grab the JSON data and put it inside the request. So now if I do console log and then request, because it is inside the request, and then body, we're going to be getting that JSON information. I'm going to do rest and then send and then 200. I just checked this one was deprecated, so we are going to use send status. Let's never try this one before. So okay, so I'm going to save it. I'm going to close this and we're going to reload the application. Now it's going to make the request, and right here we get the actual object, first name and last name. And of course, if we check the inspect, we are not getting any errors. So, you know, that is working. Once you get the information, of course, you can post it. You can say store it in your database or whatever. Okay, so this is good. Now we know how to get, how to do post, how to do get, how to get JSON and query strings. Now we are just using the server. We are creating a server and rendering some dumb HTML. But you know, this is a React course. How is this going to work with React? Okay, so let's start viewing that.